Okay, I think we'll get started because I think a big part of the beginning is just all of us introducing ourselves. We got three of you, and I think we have a couple more that were confirmed, but said that they would be a bit late. So we can get going. Let me share my screen. Let me look here. All right, I'm gonna have to ask that all of you be patient with me because I am doing my best. Can you all see a slide on the screen? Thank you. Thank you, Marco. All right, so welcome everybody. This is the Pre-NeurIPS 2023 LXAI Workshop Mentee webinar. That is a lot to say. I wanted to come up with like a jazzy, quick title, and it just did not come to my mind. So the overall purpose of this meeting, thank you all for coming here. I know for most of us, chances are this is pretty late. It's 5 p.m. in Seattle, and I think in a minute here we'll get to hear what the times are wherever you're at too. But the overall purpose of today's meeting is for the mentees to get to meet each other. We also want to brainstorm and propose questions that are going to be answered by the panelists during the diversity workshop day. And then it's also an opportunity for feedback for the next round of the mentorship program, if you feel so inclined, but you don't have to. So with that in mind, I wanted to start off with just the classic, introductions, us getting to just say who we are. Up here on the slide, I just put some basic things, but you can take it whichever style you want. I'll start off with myself. My name is Brian Ortiz. I am one of your mentorship chairs. I am a biostatistician by training. I got my PhD in biostatistics from University of Washington. My expertise is in experimental design and non-parametric regression and reinforcement learning, particularly while at Amazon. At Amazon, I'm a senior applied scientist in the modeling and optimization team, so that's my role. ML interests, I have a lot of interests as far as research. I stick to non-parametric regression and reinforcement learning for the most part, some Bayesian stuff. So yeah, I have a lot of interest, but experimentation is kind of my forte. Goals, a goal that I have within the world of ML. I do a lot of mentorship internally at Amazon and externally. And one of the like 1 year to 2 year goals that I have is to learn more about natural language processing because I want to be able to onboard mentees faster using natural language processing. And this is hopefully my way of showing all of you that no matter where you are in the journey, there's still so much to learn and so many things to pick up. So that's something I am currently working on. So with that, I will pass it off to the first mentee in the list as I see it. So Marco, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Marco. I did my undergrad in electronics. I did my undergrad in electronics engineering. Currently, I am third year PhD student at Purdue University. My research is about brain-inspired computing. So the idea is to, in some way, take inspiration of how the brain works to design more energy efficient machine learning models. So I have been exploring those spiky neural networks and also some bioplausible learning rules. I am menteeing the program, the next FREIA mentoring program. Well, actually, that's it. Well, sorry. I'd like also to mention that since my background is in electronics, what I'm trying to do in my research is not only work on software, but also in hardware. So my research goes into more kind of hardware software co-design. So yeah, that's
very cool. Very cool. Thank you, Marco. Okay, we have a few more people coming in. So next in the list, we have Sixto, and I am going to attempt to say your last name. Do you say it Cerna or Serna?
Hi, it's Serna.
Serna.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. So my name is Sixto. I'm from El Salvador. I just finished my bachelor in mathematics. I'm currently working at a startup as a data scientist, and I'm really interested in creating new algorithms. So I'm learning the theory and implementations from scratch.
Very cool. And I think next on my list is someone who just joined, Pedro.
Hello, my name is Pedro. I'm from Brazil. I am right now finishing my undergraduate in electronic engineering, and my final undergraduate thesis was using deep reinforcement learning for aircraft combat simulation for the Brazilian Air Force aerospatial environment. My research interests are both in reinforcement learning, in multi-agent um, problems, but I work as an AI research in a research center here in Brazil with speech. But I'm uh, like in beginning, so I'm still learning about this field, and I am working with.
Did it cut out for anyone else? Or maybe it's just me?
It cut out.
Oh, it did? It did cut out? Okay. Pedro, if you can hear us, it did cut out. We will get back to Pedro in a second. And is there someone else on? Oh, there's something in the chat. Oh, gotcha. So Rubenia left. Okay. Oh, Pedro, you're back.
Oh, sorry, I think I have lost connection.
No worries. No worries.
So you have learned what point or nothing?
Oh gosh, you were talking about just getting started at the place you're at right now, and just being ready to learn more, right?
Yeah, I have talked that just talking speeding up. I have finished now the graduate in electronic engineering here in Brazil. My undergraduate thesis was in reinforcement learning for aircraft combat simulation for the Brazilian Air Force. And I work as an AI research scientist with speeching, in particular with singing voice conversion in a Brazilian research center here.
Gotcha. Yeah, it was that RS role that I thought was the new role that you had taken on, and we're about to learn more about voice conversion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you all. Really appreciate it. Let me see. Well, it's just the three of us, the three of you, Laura and myself. So this is going to be, we can make this as long as people would like or as short, but I have some material here to get us going. So like I said, this is primarily about getting ready for the workshop to make it as helpful for all of you, really. So with that, I just wanted to get some overarching questions in. By show of either thumbs up on the thing or just vocally yes, how many of you have mentorship outside of this program? I see a thumbs up from Marco. All right, okay. And one of the questions I had as far as this current program is, has there been any surprising bits of advice you've received from your mentors, either here or in the past, something that kind of just was really either really helpful, surprisingly helpful, kind of didn't necessarily, it wasn't an obvious piece of advice, or just something that you hadn't really thought, you hadn't framed your career in that way, or you hadn't framed ML problems in that way. Does that ring a bell? Does that relate to any of you?
Yes, I have received some interesting advices, something that I didn't think about by myself. So it's
Yeah.
been,
I've received most appreciable advices. Like one, I
Oh, did the audio just cut out?
yes, I think so.
Yeah. Pedro, we can't hear you. We can see you moving though, so I think the internet's fine. I think it's more an audio connection specifically. Let's take a look here. Today's just full of technical issues. I had a bunch of meetings in the morning that could not get connected to a bunch of
the most valuable
colleagues.
ones that. Hello.
There we
Sorry.
go. We can
Can you
hear
hear
you
me?
now.
Can you hear me now? Okay. I think it's my microphone. Sorry.
No worries.
I have good advices from my mentor, and the one that I want to share you guys is I pretend I'm intended to maybe pursue a PhD in the maybe in the US, and my mentor have gave me the advice to be present at the conference workshops so I can make networks, because he talked to me that it's not too easy you applying to a PhD not having networks and contacts.
That is really good advice. I think PhD programs in the US, and it sounds like you intend to enter the tech world, right? Like stay in the tech world and continue working in the tech world. And for people, whether or not you're in the tech world, it's still really good to get as familiar with the conferences as soon as possible, because those conferences are really the great nexus points of the field. You get connected to what everyone else is doing, at truly the state of the art level. And this is, this field as a general category, AI, ML, it moves really fast. So having a regular cadence and mechanism to go to those conferences and meet people and kind of have a language that you use to learn new things on the fly, it's super critical. So I definitely support that bit of advice. All right, this next question is just more about general case, like what are some of the things that you all expect from a mentor? And Sixto, if you want to add anything about surprising bits of advice from mentors you've had, feel free to chime in.
No, that's fine. I don't have any specific advice that comes to mind.
Gotcha. So yeah, what do you expect from a mentor? I think when I was thinking about this, and keep in mind, most of these questions are geared to slowly get us to a place where we have questions ready for the panel. And, the relationship you can have with a mentor, sometimes you have a mentor that it is for very technical purposes, right? And I think a lot of the mentees in this program, based on the feedback given during the midpoint feedback, they wanted a lot of technical guidance. But a cohort within the cohort also wanted motivational guidance, trying to get the right energy needed to deal with such an expanding field, right? So that's kind of the main thing I want to tease apart is what do you have as an expectation for a mentor where you're at? And I totally understand that it depends on, are you currently an undergrad? Are you currently a graduate student? So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, well, sorry, I'd like to share something. Yeah, just as you mentioned, that depends on where we are, right? So I have been a mentee in several times in this program, actually. So it started like some years ago before I joined to the PhD program. So at that point, for example, I was expecting from my mentor some guidance on how to navigate through grad school, what things to do, what things avoid, how to focus on research, how to find a good research question, and this kind of thing. So now, for example, I'm looking more for career guidance, like what to do after the PhD, what kind of activities I should focus beyond just publication, right? Because publication is something we have to do, but what else I have should be good as a for a career development, right? So these kind of things. Well, at least that's for me. At some point also, I was looking for some more technical guidance. So yeah, it changed a lot how when you are navigating through grad school and these kind of things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you can't it would be very unfair to expect the majority of undergrads and grad students to basically constantly be working on a paper and nothing else. Those aren't, that's not strictly what makes a scientist. There do exist scientists like that, but advocacy, mentorship, continuous learning, continuous improvement, those are all traits of engineers, scientists, and anyone who enters this field has to do that, So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I just would like to share something else.
Sure.
So one of my mentors once told me that you shouldn't be worried about asking for help. So if you need something, the worst that can happen is that someone tells you no, right? I cannot help you at this moment, but that's the worst. If you don't ask, you never receive that kind of help. So I was trying to really living by those words and asking, for help anytime I need. And it's surprising how many people is willing to help you in some way. So
yeah. Anybody else resonate with that point from Marco? I know I do. When I was an undergrad, starting off in science, I definitely did not know who to ask, and even if I had, I might not have, because I felt so busy, like there was just so much to do, so much to learn. You kind of feel like, well, if I take any time away from this, you feel like it's a multi-armed bandit problem where it's like, well, if I take the time to ask for help, that's time away from studying. Am I trading the right thing? But in reality, it's like there are people who are ready to help you, and that trade is way better than we think. Like we actually miscalculate that trade by a lot. So yeah, I'm totally with you on that, Marco. Abel, you just joined. Do you mind? We started off with name, education, current position, role, and some ML interest. Do you mind doing a short intro? I don't know if you can hear us. Possibly can't hear us. So we'll keep rolling. All right. So one of the big questions that I wanted to ask all of you is, if you could be mentored by anybody in the history of the world, who would you pick? And this isn't, it's partially for fun, but it's also really like, it kind of forces you to think like, what's your wish list? What's the one type of mentorship you need in your life? For all you know, that type of mentorship you need is going to be on the panel. We don't know, right? But if you don't think to ask yourself the question of who is your wish list mentor, then you might not be ready when they appear. So I think it's worth answering this. So before I go down the list and see for each of you who that would be, I put up some images of folks who, you can take this question as far back or as far recently as you'd like. I put an image of Hypatia, who was the first female mathematician. I put a picture of the Cuban Carlos Finlay, 1833 to 1915. did a lot of research. He was an epidemiologist who did a lot of research on yellow fever. And it was his research that first proposed that mosquitoes were the vector for yellow fever. And here's some other folks, just to give you a sense of it doesn't always have to be a mathematician or a scientist. You know, Cesar Chavez was a labor rights activist. He worked with Dolores Huerta, and Dolores Huerta is still working to date. She is age 93, and she continues to work in activism. And she works 9 to 12-hour days to date. Like 2 weeks ago, she was on a podcast called Latino USA, and she was talking about still pulling 9 to 12-hour days. I mean, I'm in my low 30s. I find it very hard to do 12-hour days, and she's 93 and she's doing it. So she's my hero. Then we have Helen Rodriguez Trias. She was a pediatrician in New York. She used her knowledge about her community in Puerto Rico to introduce clinics. And then within 3 years, she was able to reduce infant mortality by 50%. And she also fought against sterilization practice here in the US against women of color. So very inspirational figure. Jose Hernandez, he's 61. Amazon actually just made a movie about him, Million Miles Away. If any of you haven't seen it, check it out. It's a pretty good movie. And you know, he's retired from being an astronaut, but he was also a scientist. And then I wanted to end with Sabrina Gonzalez Pasterski. She is at age 12, she built her own plane and flew in it. She piloted it. And then by age 24, she had written a theoretical physics paper that would get cited by Stephen Hawking before he passed away. And she's currently 30 years old. So just to give you a sense of, you know, past and present, there are many sources of inspiration and many virtues to really model yourself after potentially, you know, like each of these folks here, and this is not exhaustive, and you also don't have to pick someone that's on the screen at all, but just to give you a sense of like the range of people you can pick. So with that, feel free. And if it's really tough, I totally get it, because there's a lot of people in all of history. There's also athletes. I didn't put any athletes. You know, keep in mind, I am a scientist. So like my head goes to sciencey things. And, you know, I could have put more mathematicians on here, more statisticians, more physicists, you know, yeah, lots of athletes to consider, lots of everything, right? So don't feel like you need to say the best ML person you can think of. It's mainly about like who would you want to meet? Who do you think would have something really important to teach you?
Well, as you say, it's very difficult, you know, to think on someone. But maybe for me, I really would like to sometime, I don't know, in the future, to have a talk with Carver Mead. Carver Mead is a professor in Caltech. He could be known as the father of neuromorphic engineering. So it's about this idea of we can design maybe an electronic brain, something like that. So my research is in that field, so I really would like to, you know, talk with him and see how this field was at the beginnings, right? This kind of evolution, this transition from the 80s and until now, how he see that kind of thing. And maybe a more historical person, well, maybe for the hype of the movies, but Oppenheimer could be a really nice person to talk. And also, I was, you know, all this machine learning couldn't happen without first having the hardware, right? So who invented in some way this concept of computers, or maybe is Alan Turing. So I really would like to. I think it could be a very interesting person to have a talk with. But yeah.
No, those are really great. Do you mind putting in the chat the name of the first Caltech researcher that you mentioned. I didn't catch exactly what the name was, but if you could type it in there so that I can just write it down. Yeah. And I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, but I totally intend to. It just it's tough. I have a 1-year-old, and it's really tough to find 4 hours of your day where you can just sit down and I don't want to watch it in like 30-minute segments. So, anyways, Pedro, Abel, Sixto, do you all have a person that comes to mind?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is a really tough question. Very hard. I was thinking here. Maybe because of the bias of the moment that I am studying a lot of RL. Maybe it's Richard Surto and Andrew Bartle, the authors of the book of reinforcement learning. Let me show here. Author of this book. They are teachers in University of Alberta in Canada.
Yeah.
And maybe there one more. He's called Arthur Avila. He's a Brazilian mathematician, a naturalized French. He won the field medal. So I think these 3 people maybe.
Yeah. You know, you guys are very practical. You're choosing people who are like alive here, which I like, because my advice to you would be go meet them, go shoot them an email, something, you know, like I like to think most people are a lot nicer than we think they are. So yeah, I think it's worth shooting them an email. Sixto and how am I going to say your name? Xaviera?
Yes, Javiera.
Javiera. Oh, okay. Yes, it's that type of X. Javiera. Javiera, earlier in the talk we did intros, you know, I'll go back in the slides a little bit. Yeah, we had done some small introductions. Do you mind doing a short intro?
What? Sorry, repeat, please.
Oh, yeah. Earlier when we started the session, we had done some short introductions. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Okay. I don't know if the video is working because I can see myself. I don't know.
Oh, you can't see the screen share, the slides up on the screen?
No, the slides I can see. I don't know if you can see me. No, I don't know.
Oh yeah, we can see you. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Well,
I'm Javiera.
Now we see your living room.
And now?
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Javiera Lopez from Chile.
Oh, okay.
Sí, I work in the Universidad Católica del Maule, and I work mainly in machine learning and data science.
Very cool.
So I'm assistant professor, and I teach machine learning, data science, and some things about methodologies and that algorithms, that kind of things.
Very cool.
And I'm very excited because it will be my first time in this conference. So this is a very important thing in my career. So
yeah, we were actually talking about that earlier. Marco brought up some great advice he got from a mentor or advisor from his past of just, you know, getting into the habit of going to conferences and making sure you kind of know you have a mechanism. You have either an annual cadence or biannual, or, you know, you go once or twice a year to some conference and you meet people who are doing the things you're doing and maybe doing things that you are not doing right now, but could be doing. And doing that is a really good way to stay up to date with the field, but also, you know, be curious and hear about what else is happening in the field. So yeah. I think you're in the right place.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have about 22 more minutes, so I want to get to some of the and also, by the way, Javiera, is there a mentor in history that you would want to meet to learn from? Like, is there someone historical? Marco and Pedro were very practical and mentioned professors at one at Caltech and one at University of Alberta. I am probably going to follow up with these two guys and make sure that they send them an email so that way
Yes,
I can connect them.
yes, I want to meet a professor, a woman from Canada. I can't remember the name now, but I take a note in my mi agenda.
Yeah,
So maybe I can give you later. You
Okay.
give me a
Yeah,
minute.
no.
So, yeah. Okay.
That sounds good. I also appreciate that this mentee group, like, we have action items, you guys. Like, after this meeting, I'm gonna follow up with each of you to to
Yeah.
have you make contact because
Okay.
to that question of like who in all of history could you meet? If the person you want to meet is alive on this earth right now, don't wait. Just go shoot them an email and find out, start the ball
Yeah.
rolling on the conversation, I
Of
think
course.
it's totally
Yes.
worth it. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So that's good. I think we have some nice things to follow up on there. But now starting, general purpose of the meeting, trying to get questions for the panel. I know there are lots of open questions around language, definitions of machine learning and AI. Is there one that sticks out to you that you would want answered at the panel? Now that you've been thinking about, purpose, the type of mentorship you want, it sounds like all of you kind of have a strong sense of the type of research you want to be doing, or at least the type of expertise you want to cultivate, which is great. So are there open questions about ML or AI as a category that you would want to propose to the panel?
Yes, there is actually two questions that I would like to propose. The first is, with all of this GPT development, so how far the panelists thinks that we are from a general artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence. And the second one is a little more related to my research. So how much do you think we should take from neuroscience or from biological brains and bring those ideas to machine learning models? So how much bioplausible the artificial intelligence model should be? Obviously, so sometimes it doesn't matter, right? But it could be, I think it could be something interesting to discuss.
Yeah. I think there was at ICML this last year, there might have been a whole workshop dedicated to that that question of how do you transfer domain knowledge in neuroscience to neural network developments and things like that. Let me see if I can dig up what that workshop was. I can shoot it over to you, Marco, so you can check it out. But yeah, I'm definitely willing to hear what the panel says about something like that. We're going to have people on the panel that are from, Meta and Google, who probably are paid to think about that to some degree. So it'll be good to hear their thoughts. Yeah, thank you. Pedro, you got one? It's also your audio's off again. Nope, still not working. Nope.
Just a moment.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice. Yeah, I think sometimes that between the trade-off between the math theory for AI and the power computing, and if maybe the quantum computing will give a new boom at AI field. I think maybe mostly in particular the field of reinforcement learning that you have.
Okay, let me make sure I got this down right, because I think your question is likely critically important.
Or
So the way that I summarized it was, what is the right trade-off for AI capability versus energy consumption and efficiency? And the audio's off again.
oh no, it's the electronic part here.
It's
But
back now.
yeah, I have to. Is this question too? But I have a more objective question: that how can quantum computer impacting AI? Oh,
Oh, okay. How can
and
quantum computing impact AI in the near
yeah,
future?
yeah.
Yeah. No, that's also a big problem. IBM's made a lot of progress on that question. But again, there are people on the panel who I think are going to have a pretty solid answer to that, or at least some approximation to. Yeah, no, I'm actually looking forward to the answer to that one. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Javiera,
Yeah.
is there an open question you have around ML or AI, either
Yes,
where it
about
stands or where it's going?
about the law and how the artificial intelligence will impact or will be controlled because of when artificial intelligence is in bad hands, this could be not very good for everyone, and the protection of the data, all that things about legislación principalmente, ética,
LXAI,
ethics.
yeah, no, go for it.
Ethics, all that things, how will be incorporated, what the principal countries think about this, the main countries that work with artificial intelligence. For example, in Chile, Chile is working about the new law about artificial intelligence, but it is still working on. It's not definitely prepared. So we are working in mesas, I don't know how to say in English, mesas de trabajo, in order to see how artificial intelligence and the new law about this will be good for everyone, and eso that.
Yeah. No, that's really good. That's very important. I think in at ICML, in the Latinx and AI workshop, I think there was a keynote speaker who was talking about AI and its implications in society, like social impact relative to AI. Let me see if I can dig up who that speaker was, and then I can send them over to you, Javiera.
Okay.
But yeah, but we can definitely bring that up too.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the other questions I wanted to ask you all: what is important to you about ML or AI relative to identifying as Latinx? And keep in mind, I think, what percentage of the panel? So not all the panel is Latinx. And I think that's something important is we have both in the mentorship, and I think we have both in the mentees, where you can learn from Latinx, but Latinx can also learn from, right? So I wanted to hear from you all and your experiences. What is the importance to you about ML relative to how you identify? And if that's from that, is there something you want to ask the panelists relative to that? It could be a tricky one, right? Because I think how we identify is tricky. It's not a simple. It's not always such a simple check the box. I am this, and ergo, I am this type of ML scientist, right? I don't think it works like that necessarily, but I'm curious from your all experiences, how do you think about it?
Well, I'm not sure if I am understanding the question correctly. But so, sorry, what I understand from the question is that how ML or AI, no, sorry, I really don't understand the question.
No, that's fine. I think part of this is having a back and forth about, I think sometimes you ask an open-ended question that's kind of ambiguous and you see what sticks. And in this case, something didn't quite stick, right? And let me give some examples. So I know for me, identifying as someone Latinx, the importance to me in identifying as such within ML or AI is pivotal to how I want representation to develop momentum within the field. You see, because there again, it's a very fast-moving field, and I'm going to become a broken record as I keep saying that. But it's a very fast-moving field, and the mentorship and the communities you build often can get kind of isolated and become elite, very specific to expensive universities or things like that, right? But it's nice when you can have a community that you reach out to. And we're from we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries represented right now on this call, and we're all talking to each other about the state of ML, AI, and its implications on society and things like that. And I think this is all critical because we see that we're involved and we are seeing it. We are modeling that to each other, that we belong in this, and that to me is what's important to me about it. About saying I am a Latinx ML scientist, not just an ML scientist, but I'm a Latinx ML scientist. Does that help clarify it a bit?
Yeah, that helps for sure. So for me, what is important about AI to identify as Latinx, well, in some way, I would say that is this sense of community that we can develop by democratizing. I'm not sure I'm missing the
democratizing. Yeah.
Democratizing, right? Democratizing the access to the knowledge. Like, for example, I think the workshops are an excellent opportunity to students all around the world to attend to these big conferences and acquire this knowledge. So the access to information, the access to this kind of educational content is what I think is the most important for the Latinx community as a student. I'm from Peru. In Peru, it's very difficult to get access to this kind of knowledge at school. But now of course, it has improved. But at least when I was in undergrad, I didn't have any official classes related to those topics. So everything I learned was just by myself. So this sense of community that can share these opportunities and content is, I think, really, really helpful.
I would like to add something to that, and is that I completely agree with the sense that coming from Latin America is way more difficult to get access to the field, and especially when it comes to information, because most of the content, the good content, is done in English. So for someone who doesn't feel comfortable reading in English and everything, it's really hard to get access to good content from which they can build knowledge on the field. And that's, I think, one of the most important things that like everyone involved in the field should work on, and is building resources for people that would like to introduce themselves to the field, but don't necessarily know how or where to go.
That is a really, really good point you bring up, Sixto, because I can tell you, if you asked me to give a lecture about, power analysis in statistical design, and you had me do it in English, I could do it right now, 20 minutes. But if you asked me to do it in Spanish, I speak Spanish, but I wouldn't be able to do it. I don't have the language for it. I don't have the vocabulary for it. Professionally, culturally, that type of professional language for me in the community that I grew up, we just didn't use it. That's just not the language that's used. And I wasn't educated in Latin America, so I don't have it. And it seems like there's also the inverse happening where, yeah. So I'm curious from everyone here, what do you think is the right approximation to a solution to that problem? Is it to have these workshops? And keep in mind, I haven't been to a workshop that happened in Latin America. So for all I know, LXAI has the workshops in Mexico and Brazil, and they are in Spanish. Does anyone here know if we do those in Spanish?
So I can answer that actually. And I'm sorry if there's any background noise because I'm in a public space at the moment. So we have not officially hosted our research workshops in any Latin American countries yet, but we are starting to do that actually in 2024. So we will be, for example, at the Wisdom Conference, which is the Web Search and Data Mining Conference next year. That will be in Merida, Mexico. We're also going to be hosting a small gathering at the RIA conference, which is going to take place in Ecuador. Quito is where we'll be attending that one. And then the Fairness, Accountability, and Transparency Conference next year will also be taking place in Brazil. And we'll have a group that's getting together there. And then my understanding is NACL this year, which is the North American Computational Linguistics Conference, or I forget if it's the NACL or if it's just ACL, the Computational Linguistics Conference, will be taking place in Mexico City as well this upcoming year. And we'll likely have a group that's gathering there. So there will be many opportunities in this coming year to come together. The one thing I will say is that most of those conferences are still primarily in English, even if they are taking place in Latin American countries. But we always try to allow for our members to speak in whatever language they feel most comfortable when talking with their peers in our session. So during the networking event, when you're asking questions at the conference, if you feel more comfortable speaking in Spanish or Portuguese, you're welcome to do so, and then others can translate for you as well, because most people there speak several languages. So never feel shy if you prefer to speak in one language or another, just so that you know. And I will stop talking now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Laura. Yeah, so that's, I think, related to that point, Pedro and Sixto, that's a gap that needs bridging. And I think LXAI is well positioned to help start bridging that gap. So I guess the short advice would be attend the workshops, everybody, and meet your peers and speak the language of ML in person. I'll be at NeurIPS. You can feel free to speak if you speak Spanish. I do not speak Portuguese, so I've listened to plenty of Cristiano Ronaldo interviews. That doesn't mean I picked up the Portuguese though. So yeah, but that was a great point, Sixto. Anyone else want to bring up anything about the challenges within identity in ML or any of the directions that translates? Okay. Being cognizant of time, we have a few more minutes. So a quick little brainstorming sessions, questions for the panel. One of the things that came up in the feedback forms was startup support. I want to be able to have a minute to discuss exactly what we mean by that. Does it resonate with other people in the Mentee group? But first, some other, I already have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 questions that I'm going to propose to the panel based on today's session. Let's see if we can add 4 more to make it a nice round 10. All right. So are there any questions that people have related to startups? I know a couple of you are involved in startups, so feel free to shoot. Grad school questions or just field questions. So at this point, we really are in full brainstorm mode. Go for it. You know, you can go any direction you want. And no worries if we're tapped out. I know I've been kind of interrogating you all with a bunch of questions, so but that was the goal. Well, if not, I would love to really unpack. So someone brought up an interesting point, a startup support, either within the mentorship program or within LXAI as a whole. And how many of you hear startup support and it sounds like, no, that's something we should totally be discussing, just out of curiosity? Because it's from this, we can definitely ask questions to the panel, right? There are people there who will have had experience in startups. So we can ask them questions that do support you in the specific ways you need startup support. But if there's something more extended from that, we can discuss it. But first, are there questions related to startup support that you want to ask the panel?
Well, I have a general question. It's like how they start in this world of the startups. So, for example, I'm a PhD student, so I really don't have experience in industry or entrepreneurship. So I really would like to know how they started in this kind of business.
Yeah. One of the panelists, what's his name? He is the current CEO of a startup, Marcellus Amadeus, I think is his name. And he currently is a CEO of a startup. So we can ask him. We can ask Marcellus exactly that question. How did you get started doing a startup? I think one question that I have, if I can contribute to this, is when you're thinking of a startup, are you focused on the ML or are you focused on the business fundamentals? And the reason why I ask that is because, you know, I think something that I would want kind of unpacked is, I think all of us have this vision of a startup coming out of Silicon Valley and it has this very cool new algorithm or very cool new app or service that uses ML in the background. And if you or anyone on this call or anyone who attends the workshop has that big idea, great. But more and more, I'm seeing services and apps that are conceived in between those big services, you know? So they're kind of microservices to help make your interaction with those major services more seamless, right? So it's almost like efficiency startups or microservice startups. So for those type of things, I would want to hear from them, like, how do they see the transition over the next 5 years in how much ML skill do you need versus how much business acumen do you need? Because that's something I'm, struggling with currently. But yeah, does that make sense to folks on the call?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, that makes me remember something about someone once told me, it's not, you don't have to solve a problem in a very complex way, right? If you can solve something in a very simple way, that is a good product, a good solution. So I think that's related to what you mentioned about these microservices problems in between, right? In between these.
Yeah.
Things.
Okay. Well, I think we made it to the end, everybody, but if you have any additional concerns or comments, please send me an email, brian@latinxandai.org. Like I said, there's a few of you that I'm going to follow up with to make sure that we follow up on those, wish list mentors. Javiera, I can actually give you an introduction to Marzia. She was a teacher of mine, so I can definitely do that. Yeah, so that's an easy one. Everyone else, I don't know the people you mentioned, but I can do my best. Yeah. So
Thank
with that,
you. Great.
please, yeah, of course. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. Get all connected, all of us.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, with that, thank you all for coming. If you see any of the other mentees, and they have a certain question, feel free to relay it over to me. Otherwise, these 7 questions that we got here today, we're gonna get them answered at the panel. So thank you all. Good night. I know it's likely very late for a lot of you, so thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
See you.
Thank you
in
so
New Orleans.
much, Brian and Laura.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We will see you all in
Brian.
New Orleans. Yeah, of course. My pleasure. All right. And
Bye.
also, I think Laura is going to take it off live. If you all want to keep chatting afterwards, you can go ahead. But I will be off now. But yeah, thank you all.
No,
Thank you, everyone.
I have to go to
Have a
sleep.
good night.
See you. Bye.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.